Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios on this Tuesday, August the 20th. We're happy to have you in for another episode of the Prime Time program. We're talking QBs tonight, the viability of three QBs on the Titans roster, as a matter of fact, because they are in a pretty interesting, pretty precarious position, looking with Mason Rudolph, with Malik Willis, and of course, Will Levis is the starter, trying to figure out the best version of the Titans roster and whether it in fact includes three QBs. We are going to dive into the viability of that. We are also going to get to roster cuts and players that we would like to see make the Titans roster, potentially over a third quarterback, if that is going to be the way that they approach this thing. So we'll get into it together on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. In the comment section, if you want to interact, and of course, that's where you share this show. Make sure you retweet it on Twitter in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left. And on YouTube or Twitch, subscribe to the channel. Throw a like on the video. We would be grateful for your participation that way. And once you have done so, we will go ahead and dive in as more of you guys trickle on in there to wherever you are live streaming us tonight. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the fine folks at Two Rivers Ford. The South's most trusted Ford dealer is Two Rivers. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. TrueMap Fitness in the Gulch, where your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. Go to TrueMap Fitness for more information today. And of course, Zen Sports, where betting just got better. Promo code ATOZTN gets you in on all the action in the Zen Sports app. They will put you in position to succeed. So, with everything that's going on ahead of the preseason finale, more importantly, ahead of roster cut day, right? The roster reaper looms large. They call him the Turk, or whomever it is that is responsible, delegated with delivering the news to players that the coach needs to see, and you need to bring your playbook, right? The whole old time tested line that many people have delivered to many unfortunate NFL football players who are just trying to hang on to their careers, or trying to keep their career going for a little longer, or trying to make a roster for the first time. I thought it was a good quote from Jalen Harrell the other day in the post-game locker room after having another nice performance. And we think that Jalen Harrell is a pretty, I won't call him a lock, but has a strong percentage chance, a high percentage chance to make this initial 53-man roster, especially given what the edge group looks like. And in doing so, Jalen Harrell is a 7th-round pick out of Michigan. He said, it's funny that people are asking, about not trying to put too much importance on any one thing and just trying to string together the best possible training camp I can, because a lot of guys are congratulating me in the locker room for winning a national championship last football season. And now I'm in a position where I'm already having to fight for my job as a football player. So life comes at you fast in the NFL, and there is no more visceral moment with that than roster cut day. So that's right around the corner, and we have a preseason finale in between. But what the Titans have on tap is a quarterback conversation, or a quarterback situation, that has a couple of intriguing parts here. We talked about this before. It is ironic that the most proven quarterback is also the highest paid quarterback on the Titans roster, and that is Mason Rudolph. We know infinitely more about Mason Rudolph as a quarterback than we do about Will Levis or, frankly, Malik Willis. And that irony is not lost on me. Of course, he's paid better than the two of them because he is somebody who has an NFL career prior to this, and both of the other two quarterbacks are on their rookie contracts trying to vie for that second contract. And for Malik Willis and Will Levis, frankly, the hour is getting late in terms of trying to, for one, sustain their NFL viability on the roster of the team that currently, or that drafted them in Malik Willis. And for Will Levis, You have to show something this year to be on pace to cash in on one of these, by the time he gets to the market, $60 million plus quarterback contracts, which is going to be pretty interesting to see. So with everything that we're talking about, let's talk about the viability first of keeping 3 quarterbacks on the roster. And you're going to hear from both Mason Rudolph and Brian Callahan on this here in just a second. But I want to ask you what your percentage chance would be, what percentage chance you would give the Titans of keeping 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together. As always, it's your Two Rivers Ford Take. And as always, your Two Rivers Ford Take is presented by Two Rivers Ford. The South's most trusted Ford dealer is Two Rivers. They go above and beyond to help you find the vehicle that fits your family's budget and your family's needs. New or certified pre-owned, and all their new non-specialty Ford vehicles sold below MSRP. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, your Ford Bronco headquarters, or online at tworiversford.com for more information. All right, so the viability of keeping 2 or rather 3 quarterbacks on the Titans roster this year. It's an interesting discussion to have. So we don't feel any different. We'll hear from Brian Callahan, who was in that clip here in just a second. But I think for the most part, and you guys might tell me otherwise, or one or two of you may tell me otherwise, but for the most part, I feel like we're on the same page. Malik Willis is the 3rd best quarterback on the Titans roster right now. Not just because Mason Rudolph went out there and helped win the game to set the field goal kicker up to hit the game-winning kick, and Malik Willis on his final drive threw an interception that could very well have lost them the game had it been a real game, real live game situation. So not just because of the recency bias of the last 2 drives that they got, but because of the consistency, because of the mechanics, because of the ability to operate in an NFL offense, and the experience of having seen more NFL defenses in live game reps than Malik Willis has had. That doesn't mean that Malik Willis is a bum or that Malik Willis won't make an NFL roster, or if they cut him, won't make another NFL roster right out of the gates, right? It's possible he could get scooped up on waivers. But with Malik Willis, there is no question that he is 3rd in the pecking order of the Titans quarterback room. Brian Callahan, well, in fact, I'll let you hear from Brian Callahan on this subject matter because we asked him about it on Sunday.
Good to see. It's good to see them both be competitive. It's good to see Malik have some opportunities to play a little more in this game, which was good to see. He does some things with his legs that only he can do. He ran for some yards and got out of some trouble. That was encouraging. He can really throw it. He put some good throws out there on tape. Mason shows his veteranness when the 2 2-minute drives, being able to move us in position to score, I think goes a long way for him. That's really good to see. He's calm, he's collected, he makes really good decisions with the ball, and so I thought they both did really good things. And I don't really have a lot negative. I think we'll let this thing play out another week. But I think they both done really good things, both for themselves, just as quarterback play. They put some good stuff out there. So encouraged by both of them, really. And I think that, this time next week we'll be able to make a decision and determination on who the 2 will be, and then what happens with the 3rd spot. If we keep 3, or if we practice squad 3, or if we just go with 2. So we'll let it go one more week before we dive too far down that road.
How much of an advantage is the change to the emergency quarterback rule this year?
It's an advantage to some. It's nice to have, but you still have to keep. It's still an active roster spot, So it's you got to make that determination on a week-to-week basis if you're dealing with injuries or you're concerned about it. It is nice to have, though. I mean, to be able to do that is a good thing. But there's still an active part of that where it's not a free spot, which would make it a lot easier if it was just free and you could keep 3 and it didn't count for your 53 or your 46. But it still does. Unfortunately, that's the tough part. But it's a good option to have.
The other day you mentioned.
That's Brian Callahan speaking about the quarterback competition and where things stand right now for both Malik Willis and for Mason Rudolph. A to Z Sports Primetime is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Don't sell without the intel that the Ashton team can provide. Trust the best in the business at GaryAshton.com, the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. So, Couple of things to note there. Brian Callahan, that's on Sunday at his recap press conference after playing the Seahawks, said they'd let it play out another week before making an official determination. I appreciate his approach there, and I do think that that's important to at least, even if Mason Rudolph being the backup feels like an inevitability, it shouldn't feel like an inevitability for Malik Willis. Malik Willis should feel every opportunity come his way to try and compete at very least for this backup quarterback job. Don't fault Brian Callahan for handling it in that fashion. The other thing about this is the idea of the emergency quarterback rule, because now your emergency quarterback can be called up from the practice squad as opposed to occupying a roster spot. And I want to, because I was texting with a league source about this earlier in the week, and we were talking about this on the air, and I was provided some clarity because it was not, the third quarterback rule is the same, but they did pass a new rule at the owners' meeting that allowed for practice squad quarterbacks to come up as the third quarterback. The NFLPA didn't approve that change. So that was something that they were trying to finagle and ultimately weren't able to do, but the third quarterback rule still occupies a 53-man roster spot for the time being, because the NFLPA voted it down after the owners' meetings approved it. So an important note there about the quarterback situation. What percentage chance would I put on the Titans keeping three quarterbacks? I'd probably give it about a 35% chance, which is still a pretty good percentage chance. I do think teams would be more inclined to keep a third quarterback now, given the situation. I do think that teams would be more inclined to keep a quarterback who's familiar with their system if they were going to do so, but ultimately it does occupy that 53-man spot, so it still is longer odds that there would be a third quarterback when the third quarterback, unless it's Taysom Hill, right, plays special. They don't play special teams that way. That's I don't want to call it a wasted spot, but it's a luxury spot, and the Titans have needs all over the place with a great many football players. Now, what Brian Callahan also said, and this was in reference to the idea of a fourth tight end with David Martin Robinson, they're not, based on what Brian Callahan told us, they're not going to make a determination based on, hey, we need X amount of tight ends, X amount of quarterbacks, X amount of DBs, and that we're checking boxes for numbers. What he said is the prioritization is going to be on the best football players. And if they determine that Malik Willis is one of the best 53 football players that they have, then they'll make that determination when the time comes. Now, I think that there's an argument whether or not Malik Willis is one of the best 53 players on the Titans roster if he was to make the initial roster. So I'm fascinated to see what they do. There's a greater percentage chance than not that they end up not keeping him, that they end up cutting him. But I do think that he has a good percentage chance because of his familiarity with the coaching staff, with the system, and with the players that he might, in an emergency situation, be tasked with playing with. All right, let's move on to talk about the idea of if you had a situation where it was Malik Willis or a fringe roster player, right? So I mentioned David Martin Robinson, the undrafted rookie free agent tight end, who's looked pretty nice in preseason action and in the training camp practices. If I gave you the choice between DMR and Malik Willis, who would you pick? And then the other question to that would be, if I gave you the option between Malik Willis and another Titans fringe roster player, who would you pick? So let's do that exercise together. If I gave you the option, how many different Titans players would you want to make the active roster over Malik Willis? We'll talk about it together. And which players would you like to see make the active roster over Malik Willis? Let's make it specific. On Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch in the comment section is how you interact. While you do that, I'll remind you that the Primetime program is presented by Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, get up to $100 on your no danger first wager. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet at Zen Sports. Okay, so players that we would like to see make the active roster in a hypothetical over Malik Willis, over the idea of a third quarterback. I think there is some merit to Malik making the roster. Let me say that on the front end. But I do acknowledge that they have a lot of different position groups that they need quality depth at more than they need depth at quarterback, because I trust Mason Rudolph. Now, do I trust him implicitly? No, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I trust him to be the backup quarterback and to be effective in spot duty, because I've seen him do it many, many times for the Pittsburgh Steelers and do it with success. So, fringe players that I would like to see make the Titans roster over Malik Willis. I think that, for example, safety is a position that comes to mind. Defensive line, the numbers are already thin, where Marlon Davidson and TK McClendon, one is going to miss the entire season, one is going to miss a couple of weeks upcoming. Of course, offensive line depth. You don't have good offensive line depth anywhere in the NFL, but if you have better offensive line depth than you feel like provided to your quarterback room by that 53rd player, if that 53rd player is the third quarterback, would you make that decision? Otis Reese and Chance Campbell are kind of players in this situation, right? Otis Reese is also in the concussion protocol, so his odds may not be great, but there are players who have sustained injury that open the door for Otis Reese to make this initial 53. For example, a Jalen Duncan, would Jalen Duncan as your third string right tackle be a better player to have on the roster than a Malik Willis? Jalen Duncan has not impressed me at any point in training camp, and certainly I did not think he had any kind of a redeeming performance on Saturday night in the preseason game. I think that the measurements of Jalen Duncan make you want to make him into a professional football player more than he should be a professional football player, if that makes sense. In essence, what I'm saying about Jalen Duncan is he's one of these guys that looks good getting off the bus, but we've yet to see him make any kind of consequential impact. Now, can Bill Callahan bring the best out of Jalen Duncan that anybody could? I would maintain that is a pretty safe bet. But is he more valuable as a third string left tackle than Malik Willis? I would argue no, because if you're telling me third string quarterback and third string left tackle, the quarterback is the more important position, and he's not even the third best tackle on the team right now. So maybe Jalen Duncan makes sense as a practice squad. John Ojukwu would also fit this category. Would I rather have OJ or Malik Willis? I would probably take Malik Willis in that situation. I think the conversation becomes different when you get to Chance Campbell and Otis Reese. I think that both of those players have shown themselves well. I think they've shown themselves, certainly Chance Campbell has proven to be the third best off-ball linebacking option that they have. So I don't think there's any question about him over Malik Willis. Otis Reese, we'll see what becomes of the concussion situation, because that may take the choice out of the Titans' hands. Julius Chestnut as a fourth running back option. Sounds like Hassan Haskins, maybe not firmly entrenched as the 3, but pretty comfortably in that RB3 spot at this point. Julius Chestnut or Hassan Haskins, David Martin Robinson or Hassan Haskins. I would take DMR over Malik Willis. I would not take Julius Chestnut over Malik Willis because, again, quarterback having increased value there. So there's a couple of different names that I would go down the list on before I would say, yeah, Malik Willis needs to make this 53-man initial roster over, Thomas Odukoya or Steven Stilianos or any other number of fringe players. Bryce Oliver, who is an interesting player, but probably makes more sense on the practice squad. Kyle Phillips, that's an interesting question. How about this? Kyle Phillips or Malik Willis? I might be inclined to argue Malik Willis. In fact, I think I would be inclined to argue Malik Willis, and it's crazy to think about that as a statement, being a couple years removed from the draft that they came in together. Rashad Weaver is also another interesting name to toss out there, because I believe him to be closer to the cut line than a lot of people may be discussing right now, depending on how many how many edge players they keep. Phillips and Weaver or Willis? Or you understand what I'm saying? Weaver or Willis or Phillips or Willis? It's an interesting kind of question to pose because those are three different kinds of players at three different positions who have all played football for you in spot duty and have all had varying levels of success or lack thereof, right? Weaver has yet to distinguish himself. He's being beat out right now by a 7th-round draft pick out of Michigan in Jalen Harrell. Kyle Phillips was the backup slot to Tyler Boyd until this hamstring injury has knocked him out for at least the next week. And Jaquan Jackson is an ascending player, right? And then in the case of Malik Willis, he's obviously the third quarterback, but quarterback is valuable, even if you're the third string guy. And so I would probably be inclined to keep Malik Willis over both of those players. As crazy as that might seem to you to say, I do think that neither Rashad Weaver or Kyle Phillips has done anything to overwhelmingly scream, I deserve to make this 53-man roster. Other than, they're good soldiers and good people, but at a certain point you need to produce, you need to be available. One fails to produce consistently in Rashad Weaver. The other consistently is unavailable, which also hinders production in Kyle Phillips. So I would probably take Malik Willis over both of those guys. All right, we will wrap things up this evening with a gone viral video on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. In the comment section, right after you hear from Malik Willis, who we talked to in the post-game locker room on Saturday night after they beat the Seahawks.
A lot fast, and they're getting home a little bit quicker. I think that's what I need to work on from that point of view.
What's your comfort level with this offense? It seems like that you're much more comfortable and kind of relaxed when you're back there, operating the offense. It seems to fit you maybe better than some of the things in the past.
I think it's awesome. I think also that I've just continued to try to learn from any miscues I've made in the past and just try to understand the essence of where I actually went wrong and just continue to try to build on it. And I think it helps that, you got coaches, like I said, that give you the intent of what they want out of the play. And I just got to continue to work on not getting so stuck in the progression that I don't realize, okay, breaking down the rain, I need to get the ball out of the action and find my quick answer.
One of the challenges.
So that's Malik Willis speaking to the media on Saturday night. Now here's Mason Rudolph, also talked about the backup quarterback competition.
Yep, I think we got really we got a little bit of work and practice in the 2-minute, but I was proud of the way the guys communicated, and there was times we were huddling and not huddling, and just the operation was good. I was happy with the way we kind of moved the ball on the field.
Do you think Narveson had a 59-yarder in his bag?
I didn't. That's kind of a lose-lose question. I think we're always confident in the teammates, but that was an incredible kick. And 59 in the preseason, he's going to have himself a fun night, I think.
Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis on their work that they got on Saturday and the improvements that they're looking to make, and also on a 59-yard field goal attempt. That's another guy who's an interesting conversation. Narveson doesn't seem like he's not going to make the active roster over Nick Folk, but he's doing everything he can to make the roster. So you hate it for a guy like that who's clearly, doing all the right things. He just happens to be behind a guy who's been hugely consistent, made over 1,000 kicks in the NFL, and had only one miss on a field goal and one miss on an extra point last year. So the definition of consistency, Nick Folk, and that's what you prioritize at this point. All right, gone viral video is what we'll do next, right after I remind you that TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch is where you go for your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident. TrueMathFitness.com will get you in the best possible shape. They will get you in position to succeed. No workout ever recycled or repeated with the great people at TrueMathFitness.com. Looking forward to get back in there on Friday before my flight to New Orleans on Saturday. And then, of course, doing the game on Sunday down there at Caesars Superdome. Always a good time in NOLA. All right, let's see what we have on tap tonight, courtesy of Robert Walsh. The gone viral video, something that I think is near and dear to Bert's heart, in Julian Edelman, who is a known lover of Lamar Jackson and not controversial and not grifting off Tom Brady in the jobs that he's getting at all.
No team has ever done that, but the Chiefs will try to do that this year. Do you expect them to be back in the Super Bowl and win another one?
I've learned my lesson. I'm never betting against the Chiefs again. Okay, I will never bet against them. I lost a lot of money, but it's not up to the Chiefs. We all know what the Chiefs are. They got Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Spagnuolo, Chris Jones, and everyone. It's up to everyone else. We need to see a Joe Burrow come out and do something, stay healthy, start fast. You need to see Lamar Jackson, who's been on a milk carton in the playoffs, so he's missing. And then, you got to see the other guys. There's going to be a dark horseman. But
right now, your money is on the Chiefs.
I'm going with the Chiefs.
So it's not really a viral thing. It's just funny to watch Julian Edelman, who's now on Fox, doing sidelines for Fox while Tom Brady's in the booth for Fox, front running his way to not to another championship because he's obviously retired, but consistently front running and betting on the Chiefs, which would be near impossible to have a three-peat Super Bowl champion. But if there was ever a person to bet on in that instance, it would be Patrick Mahomes. So I can hardly blame Edelman. I mean, I would pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl too. We'll do season predictions for the Titans and for the NFL. We'll pick Super Bowl We'll pick Super Bowl contestants, and then ultimately the Super Bowl winner. We'll do all of that before probably the Wednesday before Week 1, before the Chiefs and Ravens open things up at Arrowhead Stadium. But, I don't blame him for picking the Chiefs. I just think it's optically funny coming from a guy like Julian Edelman because again, career front runner. All right, it's going to do it for us tonight on the show. Appreciate you guys hanging out here with us. Reminder that we will do an install with Greg Cosell tomorrow. We will also do the radio show live from training camp. Punter Ryan Stonehouse is going to be the guest. And Stonehouse came up to me the other day and said, hey, I'd like to come on the radio show and correct a couple of things that were misreported about my injury. So we would be happy to provide Ryan Stonehouse with the platform to be able to clear the air, and we will see what he has to say tomorrow after practice. So you can join us from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. Also, Charles Davis, who has been doing the Titans preseason games, and, of course, his primary job, which is the NFL on CBS, with his great partner, Ian Eagle. So we'll look forward to having Charles, look forward to having Ryan Stonehouse, and we'll look forward to having you from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. See you guys then.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville. Go home!